Okay, so I made a self-driving car not too long ago, and it's really bad. Like, it just gets stuck against the walls. It does not work very well. So in this video, we're going to be trying making a better one. Now, this thing's not very good, as I basically, the goal of this is to get a car that can actually race, well, it can race another car and actually do okay. Whereas currently they're more finding a way around a maze rather than actually going around a track, which is, I think, a good way to describe it. So obviously we need to make these things, well, be able to go faster, which isn't too much of a problem. It's just the fact that we need to stop these things crashing into walls. So I basically started completely new with a completely new base. Now the turning on this is not going to use like controllers or electric motors like in my last video, but it's going to use pistons. So pistons are pretty instant. Controllers needed to turn, as we aren't obviously using driver's seat to turn, and controls are generally just very slow, and electric motors are hard to control. But pistons are instant, very easy to control, and just very reliable in general. Now we just use this thing where it's just like basically. Now luckily the system doesn't use too much bearings, as it will get laggy if we add too much bearings, but it looks okay at the moment. Now the pistons are just connected to this big shaft, which can just turn. Well, it's on a free bearing, and the pistons will make you just turn it, which is pretty simple. And anyway, now it does mean it's a very awkward layout, as we're going to have to fit some logic in here, as I haven't really explained how we're going to be doing this, as this is anything important I'm doing right now, but basically I'm going to use a compass basically, or at least a compass inside the car, which will basically let us make it so we can control when it turns and to what angle it turns, well, what 90-degree angle it can turn to, so it can like go in an exact straight line, and we can easily control that. Now that will help a lot, as even though this thing will need to have like proper, like a realization of its surroundings, this will also just help it go in the right direction in the first place. Now to do this, we're going to use a suspension glitch, as suspension glitches can point in the same direction as they do. And if you add a bearing, then as you can see, it'll basically just point in the same direction. Now the problem with the steering system is it doesn't leave much space to put logic in, and I did make this car relatively small for how much logic is going to have to be in here, and I probably will expand it, but for now it doesn't matter too much. So basically, what we need to do is we need to have an input to which direction we'd want to go, and then we need logic to figure out, how to turn to that direction, and also keep us on that direction, which is going to be the hardest, as no matter what direction we're going, we should be able to turn left or right in any situation. And that's annoying, as you need to have quite a few bit of logic to do it. Now, I did do the logic, it wasn't that hard, but it definitely took a while. Now, the problem is, as you can see, I'm making logic so it can actually. Now, this obviously isn't on the car, but it does have thrusters, so it will be able to turn itself, and so we can test if it's working. But we're going to need to copy this all into the car, and the main problem is that this thing is around as big as the car, if not bigger, which is going to cause us some problems definitely in the future. But for now, I just tried to work on the system. And as you can see, I've coloured a bit one prong on the compass white, so a sensor can sense it and know what direction it's in. And as you can see, once it does, it actually works okay. Now currently it's broken, so basically you either turn to the direction you want to, or you turn 180 degrees to the direction you want to. This is easily solved, as basically the problem is with the current machine is it doesn't know the difference between them both. So if we just make it so it turns the right direction, and then it should work fine. As you can see, it actually works pretty well currently. Not the best, works okay. I'm currently working out, just hooking up logic gates so it turns the right way, which is quite a lengthy process. Now we'll be allowed to copy this into the car eventually, which I'm not excited for, but it's actually doing okay. Now the way it's meant to work is whatever switch you press, that switch relative to the compass will always point in that direction. Kind of like there's not really a way to describe the direction. Now, I obviously need to fit this into the car, so I got a kind of idea how the car will look. It's not going to look like that, I've realised, because that looks really bad. But anyway, today's video is just about designing this car, where we might actually make some proper races for it to go around on, and race, each other. in the next video. Now I currently have lots of now I copied all the logic in, I hope it works, and I've got lots of buttons to set which direction we want to go in. Now it will be controlled by sensors, which will, well, color sensors, which will sense specific colors and put it on the right direction it's meant to go. Now I basically have to color the track in so it goes in the right direction, but that shouldn't be too bad, and it should be pretty quick as well. Now obviously it's not as good, as it requires a lot more work for the track, so because you actually have to color the track in specific colors so it actually works. So obviously you have to prepare the track for this thing to go around, but it's not too bad, and it's not too bad of a sacrifice. So this thing could work pretty well, and I'm hoping it does. Now I did have to add a slightly more logic for the car in the end, as well, yeah, logic's annoying, but anyway, now it should work. Hopefully, I don't know. And hopefully the logic actually works. So I had to copy it around quite a few times actually, because it didn't work quite a few times, which is annoying, but it doesn't really matter. Now, there was a bit of a problem with fitting this in such a small space. The logic is just confusing, and I can't tell what half it does, and if something broke, I would not be able to fix it, I don't think. But it pretty much works. Now, I do want to test it, but there are a few worrying things that it might not work. But I'm pretty sure it does. Apart from there are some logic gates sticking out, which I don't like the ones that are actually used for turning. Now, they'll be easy to move, but we can do that later if the thing actually works. Now, I've currently got this thing on a stick that has two bearings on it so it can rotate. So basically, it can turn. Now, this is just testing it, as in real, obviously when we're actually using it, it'll turn using its wheels as it's moving. But it's way safer just to test it where it's not moving, and also just in a simpler way. Now, as you can see, I obviously done something wrong, as it's just oscillating backwards and forwards, which is not what it should be doing. Especially if you're going down a straight road, you should not be turning from side to side very quickly, as that kind of cause a crash, and also this thing will go into any wall it can. But we also need to fix this. You can also notice that the compass stays completely parallel to, the track, and it does not change direction a single bit. Although it does look like it's spinning compared to the car. Now the main problem is I've got to, hook up logic gates to turn left or right. I have to hook logic gates up to the left or right logic gate, which is annoying as I don't exactly know which way to turn. And the only way to do this is by trial and error. And that's turning the wrong way, which is annoying. But we should be able to fix this by changing a few connections. Now, I do understand how this bit works, at least, obviously since I made it, but I also understand how to change it, which is quite good. So I can actually make the change that I need. And yeah, the logic tends to start jittering a bit when you press switches too fast or press more one switch. But that's just a part of the design. Now if we actually test this in a flat world and we take a turn, it works. So basically when we're making a turn, as you can see, the kind of compass in the compass in the front kind of is where we want to go, and the compass in the back is where we're currently pointing, and they basically align, which is quite good, and that's basically what it does. It's not a great description, but basically when the compasses align, then they stop turning, which is pretty simple. I also added some more logic, which basically is to keep it on course, as I realised that when you actually turn into direction, there's no more inputs from anything to know that if you've, done like a full 180 turn. So if you were hit by something when you were going in direction and changed direction, no one would ever really know, really. But anyway, it's time to make a track for this thing, as we need a track pretty much. Now, this is going to be quite small, as this is just like a test rig for it. I also made this car, which is the exact same car, but just filled with concrete to make it weigh a bit more, and also it has no logic in it because it's got a driver's seat in it, so you can just drive it around. Just so I could drive around the track to see how it is. Now this is meant to be around the same speed as my car, but I also realised then the back wheels weren't hooked up, so I hooked them up, and it gets a lot faster. And it drifts quite a bit as well. But anyway, this thing is quite nice to control, to be fair, but we need to go back to our self-driving car. Now, I didn't mention this really, but this thing's going to basically turn using the colours on the floor. So each different colour on the floor is a different direction that it will turn into. So basically, when we have white on the floor, it'll turn to a specific direction, and when we have black on the floor, it'll turn to a different direction, which is very helpful. And it actually works okay, except we can crash into walls. I basically need to add some sensors, which basically kind of sense its surroundings. So if you're going straight into a wall, it'll know and turn out the way, which is quite helpful, as currently it would not know if we were going very fast into a brick wall, which is pretty deadly. And also, if this thing gets stuck against the wall, there's nothing much saving it at the moment, but that should change when we add sensors. Now, my last car relied completely on, like a live feedback from its surroundings, which wasn't great for it, I've got to admit, as it basically just crashed into walls, as it could only sense stuff 20 blocks away from it, which is quite a short distance, if you think about it. And when you're going very fast into walls, it's not normally enough time to, actually, like, turn out the way. But with this, it actually knows where to turn before it hits the wall, which is generally just way better. It's actually quite a successful design. Now, the main problem is that sometimes it just doesn't pick up the colour on the floor. Like, it basically just does not make the turn that it's meant to. Now, that's a bit annoying, but there are some ways to get past it, like just, for redundancy, just add multiple lines to that colour so it still turns, which is basically what I did, and it definitely didn't happen everywhere. As you can see, I added sensors, which basically make this thing turn. Now, the main problem is this thing can still get into a bit of a feedback loop as if it's going straight on into a wall. Both sensors will toggle the pistons. If both pistons on, it'll just carry on going straight forwards, which is bad. So that's why we're going to do something which is not weird, but was what I did in the last video, is we're going to have to colour one of the walls of our track a different colour. Basically, so the sensors know which wall it's sensing, so it knows which way to turn if it's, senses it, because then it knows it's going straight into a wall, and then it can turn out the way. And it knows which wall, which is also important. But this should help him just do a slight adjustment. Now, this isn't obviously meant to like drive it around the whole track. It's more the sensor more for just slight adjustments when it is going into a wall. As this isn't perfect, and as you can see, as it should, as both sensors sensing the wall, it doesn't really do much. But if one sensor is sensing the wall, it will do stuff. Now, that shouldn't happen, and this is the one thing, if that happens, I don't think it will get back on course, just because there's not enough logic for that, and there's no logic that actually puts it back on course if it does a full 180, which is bad, but it's quite hard to do and be quite annoying to do, so I'm not doing it. As you see, my old AI car's on the side of the track, now I coloured one of the walls black and one of them white, so it knows which wall's which, and also my old AI car would work on here, or self-driving car, sorry. And as you can see, we can pretty flawlessly go around this track already. And that was pretty good, to be fair, as it felt pretty natural, and it even bumped into less walls than me driving around it, which is quite surprising. Now, obviously, you do have to prepare the track for it to actually be able to go around it, but it's definitely worth the result, as I've been trying to do something like this for a long time, and it never really worked. And this is all vanilla as well, which I quite like. And as you can see, it works perfectly. You can just carry on going. Now, obviously, it can get stuck on walls, but so can all cars go. All cars can also get stuck on walls. So I could have made it reverse, and obviously turn, so it gets unstuck. But that's a lot of effort. And also, there's a lot of logic in this thing, and not much space, so I can't really be bothered. So then I set off my new self-driving car against my old one to see what would happen. Now, I made this little viewing toilet which you can just go in the air. And although both cars got stuck at first, my car actually unstuck itself before almost getting stuck again. But as you can see, it kind of makes its way around the track, which is quite cool. Now, it avoids the walls, it makes good turns, and also as you see, it hits the wall perfectly there just to make it. Now, it does lots of things which it's not programmed to, and as you can see, the old one gets lapped by the new one, mostly because it's stuck in the wall, and I mean like actually stuck, like it's currently levitating. But anyway. Now riding a car, it feels kind of weird, as it feels like someone's generally controlling it, as it's a bit very good at driving. Now as you can see, stuff can go wrong, there's lots of time. It doesn't sense the stuff on the track and just doesn't do anything, which is annoying, but well, it doesn't really matter. I doubled up a few lines, so it'll definitely sense them, as it has twice the amount of time to sense them. But anyway, let's race a few of these. Now how will this go? I've got no idea. Now they all start at roughly the same time, it's not going to make much of a difference. As you can see, they all do the turns pretty in sync, and it's actually quite funny to watch, really. And then they all crash into walls. And then, as you can see, the one I'm riding gets in front, and both other cars get stuck on walls. One, I'm pretty sure, is only slightly stuck, whereas the other is completely stuck. It's not getting out there anytime soon. Also, if I race my old car, my new car, then the old one basically blocked this one from turning, which is smart of it, and then it kind of also got stuck against the wall. But if I start again, my self-driving car actually does pretty well. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. My next video is probably going to be making a few tracks to race these around, because this track's very small. Now, it's definitely a way bigger improvement to my old one, as this one just basically just bounces off walls and just goes into the other one. I mean, to be fair, it's got a very good turning circle, so it definitely can go off walls. And times like that, it's actually pretty good. But my new one's just way better. It feels natural, and I'm finally glad I actually done this. I've been wanting to do this for a while. So anyway, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.